Hey guys, Toby Mathis here with Infinity Investing, and today we're going to talk about tips and tricks to grow your personal wealth. Now, there's a ton of misinformation out there on, hey, do this to make $1 million, do this to make $1 million, all this stuff. Most of it is absolute garbage, right? The easiest way to think about growing your income is to take a look at those who have managed to do it over a long period of time, no matter what their station in life. In other words, there's a misconception that you have to be born rich to make money. I need money to make money. Well, it's very interesting when there was a study done on millionaires in the United States of over 10,000 millionaires. They found that the top three categories of professions that are millionaires, the top three, 1, engineers, 2, accountants, 3 was teachers. And when I say teachers, teachers, as in like elementary, high school. I've had discussions on this online where people are like, it was only professors. No. It was teachers, and most of it was regular teachers, like in my town. The reason being is because those folks understand the principle of building wealth over a longer period of time. In other words, they're not trying to make a whole bunch of money this year. If you want to be rich, you have to spend less than what you make, and the investments that you have to be able to start supporting you so that eventually you can quit working. I don't think you're rich if you're making $1 million a year and spending $1 million a year. I think you're kind of dumb. I think that's not a very good idea. You have rich. You're rich for a short period of time. Wealthy really is having this wealth that you can't get rid of. It's having generational wealth. Means I have assets that no matter what I am doing personally, the asset is generating income. Warren Buffett put it well. He goes, if you don't figure out how to make money while you're sleeping, you're going to work until you die, right? You got to find out how to buy assets that pay you over the long haul so that at some point you don't have to work. You're freeing yourself. You're leaving the golden cage, so to speak. As I know a lot of people that find themselves 50 years old in a very expensive house with very expensive cars, with lots of kids with college tuition, and they are literally drowning in debt. They feel that pressure, and they look at retirement and they go, I'm never going to be able to retire. I'm going to have to downsize. I'm going to have to considerably change my life. And the reason is really simple, and I'll just give you the easy formula. I'll give you 2 formulas, actually. Number 1, assets feed you and liabilities bleed you. Assets put money in your pocket on a quarterly, monthly, annual, whatever the period, puts money in your pocket that you can spend on groceries, that you can take your wife out or take your spouse out to the movies and your kids, that you could buy things with. I could buy a pizza with it. Liabilities pull the money out of your pocket so that you can't buy the pizza, right? You can't go out and do the entertainment. You can't go pay for college tuition because it's costing you money. So we all, use the prime suspect here. It's always your house, right? People say, oh, my house is my biggest asset. No, it's not. In the sophisticated investment world where you're looking at accredited investors, they don't even let you count your house. They exclude it from the definition of accredited investor. And the reason being is because your house is a liability. It sucks money out of your pocket every month. The bigger the house, the more it's sucking. Not only is it taking additional resources and energy and water and all those things, but property taxes, and usually you have a mortgage on it. Sucking money out of your pocket every day. That doesn't mean don't buy a house. It just means you want to minimize that liability to the extent you're able to. So buy the house you need. Don't buy that house that you want just because somebody tells you you can afford it because they're using 30% of your income to qualify for a loan. That puts you in a golden cage. You're basically going to be a servant to that bank for a long period of time. And then you go, but the houses go up in value. Not always. If you know anybody that went through 2007, 8, 9, and 10, you know that's not true. If you know anybody that went through the 90s, you know that's not true. They fluctuate just like anything else. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're underwater, which means that you owe more on that piece of property than it's worth. You couldn't even sell the house and pay back the loan. It's not a good situation to be in. So that's number 1. Assets feed you, liabilities bleed you. And you want those assets to be generating enough income so that you don't have to work, that it replaces and covers all your expenses. The infinity investing, if you have infinite net worth, isn't a massive dollar amount. It's how much is being produced. You could actually have an infinity net worth of infinite by just having a few properties that are paying enough rents to where, hey, it covers my expenses. My expenses, I know millionaires, multimillionaires that spend about $4,000 a month, and they have a few properties that are generating that much. They never have to work again. Now, could they spend more? Sure, but they don't have to, and nobody's going to force them to work. So if they wanted to retire and they wanted just to go gallivant around the world, they could, because their expenses are low enough and their infinity income, the assets they have, is producing enough money to where they don't have to go work. They could, they don't have to go into the office if they don't want to. They could, and most do, because they actually enjoy what they're doing. But that's called being a volunteer as opposed to being a servant. If somebody says, hey, you don't have to go work today, but you could, and you decide to go work and you want to do things because you're passionate about it, that's very different than I have to go to work because, oh man, all these bills are coming due and I have a huge credit card balance and my leases are up on my cars and I'm going to have to go get more whatever. We don't want to be in that situation. So that's number one. Number two is I'm going to give you a really simple formula for how to make sure that you don't end up in a golden cage. And that is the 70-30 rule. You live off of 70% of what you take home. 70% of what you take home. So if you make $100,000 a year, you're not going to live off of $70,000 a year. You're going to shoot for you're living off of 70% of whatever you take home, which means if I make $100,000 a year and I'm taking 80, then I'm going to live off of 70% of 80, or what is that? 56,000. That's going to be my budget. Now you have another 30%, and I'll tell you what to do with it. If you want to listen, you don't have to follow what I'm saying, but I'll just tell you that this has been the formula that works for tons and tons of people that are successful. And any multimillionaire would tell you that this actually works. If they generated their own income, you have to give away some of your money. Some of your money or some of your time. One of the two. And I use 10%. So I'm not going to say I recommend. I'm just going to say I use 10%. Make sure that you're doing good works for other people and you're giving back of 10% of your take home. Doesn't mean you have to tithe it. Doesn't mean this, that, or the other. And if you don't have the money, like you're starting out and you're living off of every dollar you bring in, by all means, just go out and volunteer somewhere. It's magic how it works, but you'll make greater relationships and it will help you out financially if you do this. I'm just telling you this is how the world works. Again, you don't shoot the messenger. This works. And the reason I know it works is because we do over 10,000 tax returns a year here. And I can see my clients who the ones that make money every year, year after year. Guess what they all do a lot of? You got it. They're voracious givers. Number two, use 10% to pay down any debts you have. It doesn't mean that that's 10% is budgeted to pay credit card bills. No, this is an additional. So if you're paying the basic amounts of your debts, throw an extra 10% in on there. Knock out that debt until it's all gone. Once you're out of debt, then use that 10% and put it into the third category, which is investments. Have 10% of your money going into investments on day one. And you're going to say, but I want to have a better apartment or this, that, and the other. No. If you want to be wealthy, unfortunately, you got to start thinking like a millionaire. You got to be thinking about the wealthy. And the wealthy invest first and then they pay their bills. In fact, a great writer, Robert Kiyosaki, wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He once said, the biggest difference between the rich and the poor is the rich make money, invest, and then spend what's left, whereas the poor make money, spend it, and invest what's left. So make sure that you're investing first, 10% at a minimum, and put it into infinite money-generating mechanisms like dividend stock, REITs, real estate, things that are going to pay you for a perpetual period of time because those grow. Once you start planting those seeds, somebody's going to say, but it's only 10%. A seed is really small until it starts to sprout and grow. And in some cases, it takes 10 years, 20 years for it to grow. But once it grows, it bears fruit. And so if you plant enough seeds with that 10%, it's going to take care of you the older you get. Give it 20, 30 years, and you will be shocked at how much money you have coming in. And all of a sudden, you're like, wait a second. This didn't happen overnight, but it was very gradual. It's kind of like the boiling frog. If you ever heard the analogy, you put a frog in water and you turn the water on, the frog doesn't get out of the pot until when it's boiling and it kills the frog. The frog never knows that it's hot because it was so gradual. The same principle works with wealth. You don't realize that you're generating a ton of wealth until one day you realize I don't have to work. And it's going to happen if you use that 70-30 formula. So anyway, so that's how that works. And those are the best tips I can give you. If I was going to say a magic world, it was going to be to eliminate your debt and make sure that you have assets coming in, and life gets so much easier. But you have to be patient, you have to be diligent, and you have to be consistent. If you do those things, you'll be rewarded. If you don't do it, you can join the millions and millions of people that are going towards retirement and have no money saved up, and they're going to be relying on Social Security. I don't think you want that, and I don't want that for you. Hey, if you know anybody that could benefit from this information, please share it. If you have any comments, please leave them below. If you want us to hit a topic and you say, could you please address this topic? I'm really interested in this. By all means, leave it in the comments. And of course, like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.